Hey guys, and welcome back to this week's live stream. I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight. And as you can see, tonight we're going to be discussing freedom of speech. What does that mean? Is freedom of speech at risk? And we're going to be talking about the recent social media bans on some very well-known public figures, such as Farrakhan and Alex Jones. Um, if you have been paying attention lately to, what's going on in the news, it made headlines about a week ago, I believe it was, that Louis Farrakhan, who is the leader of the Nation of Islam, he's been banned from Facebook and Instagram, I believe. One of his most popular books have also been banned from Amazon. And in a minute, we'll get into what the name of that book is and the reasons why I feel that that book has been banned. We also have a call-in number if anyone wants to call in a little bit and share their thoughts. So I'm going to go ahead and give out that number. And the call-in number is 561-336-5622. Again, the call-in number is 561-336-5622. In a little while, if anyone wants to call in and just share their thoughts on this topic and, provide some insight if they have some information that they would like to share. I want to start off by saying the reason I wanted to talk about this evening is because personally, I don't feel that this ban on Farrakhan and Alex Jones is just specifically to target Farrakhan and Alex Jones. And I specifically want to actually speak more about Farrakhan because honestly, I feel that, the things that Farrakhan has been saying recently is really what drove this whole ban on different social media platforms. And I feel there's some very, very specific reasons for that. I feel that people like Alex Jones and others that got banned, they got banned because I don't think that Facebook and these other social media platforms wanted to be seen as biased, racist, and so on and so forth. And, that's just how I honestly feel because, as we know, there's been several people that are very similar to some of the things that Alex Jones says who have been allowed to run them up on Facebook for years. And many times, a lot of these pages, they don't even get taken down, although they're spewing a lot of hateful rhetoric against Black people and other, so-called minorities. The first thing that I really want to focus on is the reasons that I feel that, Facebook put this ban on Farrakhan and also his book being taken down off Amazon. I don't know if it's been put back up, but the headlines that I saw showed that his book had been banned. And the name of that book was actually The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews. And in that book, Farrakhan talks about the tremendous role that the Jewish community played in slavery. A lot of people don't know that. And, I believe that's why the book was titled The Secret Relationship, because many times, a lot of people are told that slavery, chattel slavery was, something that was kind of specific to only certain groups of people. And in this book, Farrakhan exposes that, the hand and the role that the Jewish community played in, what is known on record as, one of the, if not the most atrocious thing that happened against humanity, which was chattel slavery. And I believe that those sorts of things getting out there to the public is is pretty is hindering to the Jewish community, to the extent that, a lot of times the Jewish community, they get a lot of sympathy for things that have been done to them. And, I'm not saying that people should not sympathize with the plight of some of the things that they have been through. But, with information coming out like this about how they played a role in slavery, it kind of makes people question, it kind of gives people a different outlook on how, a group of people that really have a monopoly on sympathy, and how, they actually had a hand in something that was so damaging to many, many African people across the world. So, I could understand how, when it comes to things like social media, which, if we're going to be honest about it, the Jewish community has they have a very big monopoly on media in general. So if there's something that they don't want to get out there, it's very, very easy for them to have that power and that influence as being a powerful community, because the Jewish community is, a very powerful community. And, for something like this to come out about the roles that they played in slavery and so on and so forth, I personally feel as if, that's something that they would do their best to get, taken off of such public platforms, where you have, millions and millions of people that are using these social media platforms on a daily basis, and this information being out here. Now, Facebook, they stated that, they banned Farrakhan for hate speech and promoting violence. Now, me personally, I've listened to a lot of Farrakhan's speeches, and old and new, and a lot of his stuff that's posted on YouTube and Facebook and other social media platforms. And personally, I've never heard him promote violence. That's something that I've never actually even seen the Nation of Islam do. Now, they do promote self-defense, but I don't see how that can be categorized as violence, as promoting violence. And I also don't see how that can be categorized as hate speech. Also, with this ban on Farrakhan, with Facebook saying that he's promoting hate speech, I think that, there's a fine line between hate speech and people really just hating to hear the truth. Because a lot of times, people are on Facebook and they're hearing the truth about things that they don't necessarily want to hear the truth about. And, that's when they begin to flag your page and report you and, complain about it. But the bottom line about it is that a lot of the things that, people are saying on Facebook, as it relates to exposing a lot of racism and a lot of things that are going on in society, that's not hate speech. That's people that's actually telling the truth. And I believe it was last week, an article came out on the Daily Dot that was exposing the fact that a lot of people have been saying that Facebook is banning a lot of people's pages that speak about racism and speak about different forms of discrimination that are going on in society. So, my thing is that, Facebook is allegedly a privately owned company. So they do have certain rights where they can restrict what people say on their platforms. But, I remember when a lot of people started complaining about a lot of white nationalist groups that were actually posting a lot of hateful things on Facebook and actually promoting violence. And before people made a huge fuss about it, there really wasn't much being done. You know, they were saying things like they really couldn't infringe on people's freedom of speech. But, it's mighty funny to me that when you have people saying things that, the power structure does not necessarily want to get out there, then that's when you see, Facebook kind of flexing their muscle and banning a lot of these Facebook accounts where people are just really, they're not promoting violence. They're not promoting hate speech. They're kind of just, holding a mirror up to society and saying, this is what is going on and this is what is happening. And unfortunately, a lot of times, because you have individuals who are very, very powerful that want to suppress these messages, it's very easy for them to, have a stronghold on these social media websites where they can kind of control what is being, being pushed out there to the masses. And it's very, very unfortunate for people like myself and many others that simply just want to tell the truth. We're not promoting hate, we're not promoting violence, but we want to be able to have a conversation and let people know what is actually going on in society. It's a very dangerous thing when we get into, when we get into a situation where our voices are being silenced and we're being suppressed and we can't express ourselves and tell our truths. You know, that's when we have to question if the laws of the land and different things that were put in place that supposedly, us as citizens, we supposedly have these different rights where we can say what it is that we want to say, as long as we're not, threatening people or promoting violence or any other types of hatred and so on and so forth. And as I was saying, there's a lot of people that's up here on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other sites. And, they're simply just trying to get their message out there. They're not necessarily doing the things that they're being accused of doing. But like I said, when you have a segment of society and certain individuals that are very, very powerful and they have the they have the resources to shut people down, that is what we're seeing taking place right now. And it's just very, very, it's very, very unfortunate because, I think that when these social media platforms begin to emerge, I don't really think that, the people that created these platforms were expecting for people to actually use these as tools of communication to expose a lot of things that are going on in society that have been able to be brushed under the rug for so long before a lot of these platforms were developed. So, I think that when these platforms were created, honestly, a lot of them, I think that, the power structure was expecting for these platforms to be tools of distraction where, people would get up here and kind of escape reality and engage in, entertainment. And in many cases, that didn't happen. People begin to use these platforms to communicate with one another about some really, really serious things that are going on in society. So now we can see that, since a lot of people are able to reach the masses and communicate, with people all across the world, and people are actually being able to see what is going on, that's, now we're seeing the heavy hand come down, and we're seeing a lot of these restrictions and these policies being implemented where people's freedom of speech is pretty much being infringed upon. And that's why I asked, was freedom of speech at risk? Because I honestly feel that, you know, these social media platforms, who to me, are not really privately owned businesses. I do feel like there's a lot of government influence with these platforms. Obviously, I believe that, worldwide, there's about 1 billion people on Facebook. So for us to actually think that, the government isn't monitoring these sites and, doesn't have a certain level of influence in what can and cannot be said on these platforms, I think is very, very naive for people to think that with so many people having access to these platforms, that, the powers that be are not looking into this and, trying to keep a certain level of restraint over what is being talked about. And, personally, I feel that it may, you may begin to see a lot of this taking place outside of social media. So we're going to have to do the best that we can do to keep the conversations going and continue to communicate with each other the best way that we can. Because as I was saying, I feel that a lot of these people that are being banned on Facebook, that is only a precursor to what may come, outside of the internet. I think that eventually, it's a very strong possibility that there may be some actual bans coming down from the government, you know, and if we're supposed to be in a nation where we have the right to freely speak our minds about anything, it's very, very dangerous when, we get into the area where we have restrictions on what it is we can and cannot say. Another thing that I wanted to point to as to why I feel that, Farrakhan was pushed into the forefront of this whole Facebook ban thing and, other social media sites is because Farrakhan has been a very, very strong voice against vaccines. And as we all know, vaccines is a very hot topic right now, with a lot of people deciding not to vaccinate their children for various reasons. There's a lot of information that is coming out about vaccines and how, they're a lot more harmful than people, may have previously known. And there's a lot of information that is being shared on the social media sites. There's a lot of information that Farrakhan and his people were putting out there about how, we should not be vaccinating, because a lot of these vaccines are actually harmful. And I agree with that, because personally, I feel that vaccines are they're very experimental. A lot of times, since there's really no way to screen these vaccines, a lot of times people don't know what the effects are going to be. You're kind of just, in many ways, you're kind of just blindly vaccinating, and you don't really know what the outcome is going to be. And for some people, the outcome has been very, very tragic. And, when you think about how someone with the influence as someone such as Farrakhan can get up here and use different social media outlets as a way to push that message out to the masses, that is a very threatening thing to the companies that are making money hand over fist with these vaccines. So, those are some things that I really feel is what was kind of like the final nail in the coffin, where, people continue to complain about the messages that he was putting out there. And eventually what led to him being removed from Facebook and other sites. But as I was saying, I don't feel that, this was something that was specifically directed toward Farrakhan. I feel that this is something that was used as a proxy to say to everyone that actually has a message to put out there that goes against the status quo, that you too can be banned. You too can have your voice stripped away from you. So I think that's something that we all need to keep in mind, because, this is the way that many of us communicate with the masses. For example, on my Facebook page, I have, Facebook friends from all over the world, and we talk about a number of things that are beneficial primarily to us as Black people, and, beneficial to the entire world as a whole. So, we really have to think about what is going on and who could stand to gain from silencing voices that go against the grain. I think that is something that we have to take very, very seriously, because if we don't have our voice, then, there's no way that we will be able to have an influence on a lot of the things that we don't agree with. We'll kind of be sitting ducks, just, being led to the slaughter, because we're not able to communicate and counter some of the things that are being pushed out here that are actually harmful to us, that we're being told is good for us. And I really don't want it to come to a point where we're completely cut off from being able to communicate with, a large number of people in many different areas at the same time. And, I think that we need to kind of get the word out there that, our freedom of speech is something that we're going to be able to have to hold on to, because, as I was saying, without that, we're pretty much going to be rendered voiceless, and we're not going to be able to, get our truth out there and let people know exactly what is going on. Now, another thing that I want to say specifically to the Black community, because, as I was saying, the article that came out on Daily Dot, it was talking about how Facebook, in many ways, they specifically target, um, you know, Black people that have a message for the masses of Black society. And, those individuals, excuse me, that use their page to spread a message of upliftment, and to basically, let other Black people know what is going on as it relates to a lot of the things that are happening to us, specifically, and how we can counter those things. And what I specifically want to say to Black people is that we really need to start considering having our own media apparatus, as far as things that we will be able to own and control, as to where we won't really have to worry about, at least not right now, we won't have to worry about being silenced for merely pointing out a lot of the things that are happening to us in particular within this society. you know um just recently there was a video that was released of Sandra Bland, with what really happened to her during that traffic stop. And this was information that had been being withheld for 4 years now. And, I personally feel like, it's very damaging when we don't have the opportunity and we don't have the resources. Well, we don't allocate the resources, I should say, because I personally feel that we do have enough collective resources that we can begin to build comparable social media outlets where we'll be able to have conversations with one another, and we won't have to worry about people not liking what we're saying. So then they're going to go and run and report us to Facebook, flag our pages, flag our YouTube pages, get us taken off Twitter and Instagram. If we had something that was comparable to these things, we wouldn't so much have to worry about, being at risk of not being able to have a voice and say what it is that we need to say. And honestly speaking, like I said, we have enough collective resources that if we're really serious about continuing to be able to spread our messages, then we will begin to allocate those resources, and we will build these media outlets that we so desperately need to be able to keep our message going. Um, a lot of times we get up here and we complain and we moan and groan about what is being done to us and how we don't like it. For instance, when Facebook banned Farrakhan, there was a lot of people saying, how this is terribly unfair and he hasn't done anything wrong. And, Facebook is discriminating against him. But meanwhile, what are we actually doing to be able to be in a position where we don't necessarily really have to worry about um, someone being able to silence us? Because, someone like Farrakhan, who puts very good messages out there, um, a lot of people have been cut off from those messages, and a lot of people have been cut off from some very, very valuable information that could move us forward as a community. And, I'm hearing that if you go on Facebook and you even share anything, anything that is pertaining to Farrakhan, then your page will be blocked as well. So, they are going full circle with making sure that his messages don't get out there, and making sure that they're also going to silence anyone that, has any type of plans to try to keep his messages going, which is very, very unfortunate because, as I was saying, a lot of times he has a lot of good information for the community. And, to have such a powerful voice taken down and banned from being able to communicate with the masses, I feel as if that was a major blow to the community. And with us not having any comparable social media outlets to Facebook, because let's be real, although there are other social media outlets that are more so catered to our community, a lot of us are not using those websites. And, I think that's something that we need to really start taking seriously. Will there be a mass exodus from these platforms that seek to silence us and seek to take our voices away and not allow us to, communicate among each other? And I know some would argue that, if you're going against the status quo and these people are pretty much in the back pocket of the powers that be, then why would they allow you to get up here and say things that will awaken the masses? And although, that makes a lot of sense and that's true to a certain extent, that is why I say we need to have something comparable. We need to have something that is going to be enticing to people to make them want to, come on over and pretty much make a final exit from these social media platforms that are truthfully just not fair to people that have a message that is outside of the box. And, they claim that they're fair to everyone. But as we can see, and as I know for myself, there's a lot of there's a lot of Black people that have pages that are they're reported daily just for them merely making statements that everyone knows is true. And like I was saying, a lot of people want to identify hate speech as identify these messages as hate speech because they hate to hear the truth. And we cannot allow ourselves to be in this position where we basically don't have a voice. Um, it's very frustrating to me because I know that if we really wanted to, and if we really took it seriously, we could we could have something comparable to these sites relatively quickly. But for some reason, I don't know what it is about the psyche of many Black people. They kind of have an issue with with believing in themselves and believing that they can do something great. And I know a lot of that comes from, the colonial powers that have put out a lot of lies about how we haven't really contributed anything to society and to humanity as a whole. But, at some point, we're going to have to break that conditioning. And we're going to have to say to ourselves, you know, do we really have to take this? Do we really have to be in a position where we don't control anything? Therefore, at a moment's notice, we can have these things stripped away from us and we won't be able to communicate with each other in the ways that we want to. And I honestly feel that, there's a lot of us that want to do this, but myself included, we haven't taken the time to sit down and come up with a plan and reach out to each other so that we can really, begin to make serious moves toward building something for ourselves. I think that's the biggest problem is that, we don't have anything that we actually have true ownership over. And it's hindering us because we can't really do what it is that we would like to do. And, it's very, very evident that, excuse me, it's very evident that we're still under massive control of people that don't have a vested interest in us uplifting ourselves. And, but by us being able to have our freedom of speech and continue to communicate with each other, that is being challenged right now. So, personally, I just feel as if, we need to really take this seriously because this is not something to just be brushed aside. And I know a lot of people, they feel as if they don't have anything important to say. So they don't really care about what is going on. And as I was saying, I personally feel that this is something that can go outside of social media. We don't want this to get to a point where, you can't even say what you want to say out on the streets in conversation with your friends and family because someone is going to go and report you. And then, it could ultimately be a crime for you to be able to have views on different things that are going on. This is something that we cannot take lightly. And, I want to encourage everyone to pay attention to what is going on because things start off like this and then they blossom into something that is far, far, more sinister. And, a lot of people are not paying attention to this right now, as I feel they should be. A lot of people get on these social media platforms and they take it for granted and they don't understand that if freedom of speech goes, a lot of the things that you're able to do that you're taking for granted, they're going to disappear, and you're not going to have the ability to do that anymore. So, that's pretty much what, I wanted to say about the whole ban on social media and freedom of speech, because I honestly feel right now that the Constitution is being gutted. And if we don't yell from the hilltops, we're going to be in situations that we really don't want to be in. Okay, looks like we have a call coming in.
Okay, I sent the caller's voicemail. Goodbye.
I don't know who that was calling in, but if you could call again, I think the call dropped. I believe there was a call coming in, so whoever that was calling, if you want to go ahead and call back, I believe the call did drop. So yeah, as I was saying, let's just take this a lot more seriously than we've been taking it. I see a lot of people saying that, they don't care about Farrakhan, so it really doesn't matter to them. They don't like Farrakhan. Okay.
To accept, press 1. To send a voice message.
Hey, caller, thank you for calling.
Hey, hello?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you for calling.
No problem. I just wanted to add, you had mentioned that, that this is something that might very well go outside of social media. And I just kind of wanted to add that it's already past that. Like for instance, at colleges, a lot of people have been blocked from speeches, have been booked, and have been blocked just just because of their political agenda that they're seeking. If it's not liked, it's bad. It's already going on. It's not just it's not just social media. It's really already going on. You mentioned taking it to a place where you could possibly get arrested or get in trouble for speaking in the streets. We're already on the brink of it. Because if you can be blocked from speaking at a college because the left or the right doesn't like what you have to say, we're already there. Just kind of wanted to put that out there.
Something, I'm glad that you called in and mentioned that, because now that I think about it, I do remember seeing a lot of people that were supposed to speak at colleges, and a lot of these people, I don't agree with them. I don't agree with their views, but people were actually able to protest and get them banned from speaking at the colleges. One person in particular that I can remember is what is his name? Jared Taylor. I'm sorry.
I wish I had names. But it just came to me right off that when I was listening to you speaking, and it just came up that it's already happening. Like it's already going on. But I don't want to keep you too long. Keep on, doing what you're doing. You're doing a good job. But I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, well, thank you for calling and sharing that, because like I was saying, I actually, now that you mention it, I do remember there being a few instances where people were actually supposed to go and speak at colleges. And although I don't necessarily agree with their narrative and I don't agree with their message, but people were actually able to get them banned from speaking at the school. So yeah, we are actually seeing remnants of that taking place outside of social media, which is very scary when you think about it. But thank you for calling and sharing that. I'm going to expound on that a little bit more. Thank you. You too.
Keep up the great job.
Thank you. Yeah, as the caller was saying, we're already seeing remnants of that happening outside of social media. And it's funny that that escaped me because actually I was mentioning Jared Taylor. He was actually supposed to go speak at a few colleges, and if you don't know who that is, you can go ahead and look him up. Like I said, I don't agree with his views at all. I personally feel that he is a white supremacist, but regardless of that, in this country, you're supposed to be able to have freedom of speech to express your views about how you feel about certain things. And he was actually banned from a few schools because the students protested and they didn't want him there. And his freedom of speech was infringed upon. I can't necessarily say I'm sad about that, but it in any event, it violated our rights, that we're supposed to have as far as freedom of speech goes. So yeah, as the caller was saying, we actually are seeing that taking place outside of social media, where if you have certain views that don't necessarily fall in line with the masses, you're kind of restricted on what you can and cannot say. Now, like I said, I do not agree with anything that Jared Taylor says, but you know, he doesn't really necessarily promote violence or anything like that. So, under the so-called, rights that we supposedly have, in those situations, he should have been able to go out there and express his views to whomever wanted to listen to him. But, in this politically correct society that we're living in, we're seeing a lot of speech being restricted. And I think that, me as a person that points out a lot of the things that are being done against the Black community, it does worry me a little bit that these bans are coming into place and we really don't know how long we're going to be able to get these messages out here without facing tremendous backlash. And that's why I say, excuse me, people need to be, paying attention to what is going on, because there's no way that, we're going to be able to get this information out to you as fast as we are if these social media sites decide to, take our pages down and ban us and block us from being able to communicate. And this is not easy for a lot of content creators and people who build Facebook pages around trying to get important information out to the public. It's not easy because you do get a lot of hate. You do get a lot of people criticizing you. You even get people threatening you sometimes. So it's not easy. It's not an easy thing. And I think that people don't need to take it for granted that there's people that's actually risking their reputations, risking their safety in some situations to be able to keep a narrative going that doesn't keep people asleep and doesn't keep people, as sheeps just walking to the slaughter. And, it's very disheartening when you have people that just basically, say things like they don't care about these bans that are going on because it's not happening to them. But like I said, it starts with Farrakhan, Alex Jones, and others. And then next thing you know, your page is blocked because you have an unpopular opinion about something, or you're putting information out there that you feel is relevant that people should know about that may be hidden or shielded away from the public. And, next thing you know, your page is gone. Your voice has been taken away from you and you've been silenced. Once it gets to that point, people are not going to think that it's such a game anymore. So, those are things that we have to seriously take into consideration. And, we don't want to sound like a broken record, but we have to continue to put the messages out there because, the mainstream media is not going to do it. That is not what they're there for. They're not there to, put the unpopular information out there. They're not there to tell some of these secrets that are being shielded off from, the masses of people. So, like I said, do not take it for granted that, you have access to this information because you don't know how long you're going to have access to it. It's not something that you should just let, pass in the wind. You have to pay attention to what is going on because if you don't, you may wake up one day and all of the voices that are putting the information out there that is useful to you and that is conducive to you not being in a situation where you're under complete dominance and control and you have someone putting the information out there and restricting what it is that you have access to. Please do not take this for granted. Like I said, this is something that is very, very serious. And if you want to continue to be able to have this information, you have to support the people that is putting this information out there. And I can't stress it enough that, you really just can't take this for granted. You have to take this seriously and you have to understand that once all the voices that are actually taking a stand and being courageous enough to put this information out here, you know, when and if the day comes that we're no longer able to do this, then it's pretty much going to be too late for you to have access to a lot of this stuff that will put you in the position to be aware of what it is that that you're up against. So, I'm not going to make this stream too long, but I really did want to, come up here and have this conversation because, like I said, I feel that it is very, very dangerous when we begin to get into the area where, your very voice and the thing that we take for granted is, on the chopping block. And in many other nations, there is no freedom of speech. A lot of people would you can only dream of being able to have this little bit of freedom of speech that we do have. And I feel like a lot of us we're taking this for granted. We don't understand how difficult it can be for us once this is taken away. So, that's something that I really want to, to stress that issue, that this is something that we cannot take for granted. This is something that we must be very, very serious about. This is something, like I said, that many people do not have the opportunity to take advantage of. And more now than ever, now that we see that, the people that are putting these messages out here, they are being watched and they are under attack by, the power structure. And, as I said, sooner or later, we don't know what the outcome is going to be. They start off with people that, have the masses of attention, but don't think that you're ever too small, that, you can't be the next person to have your page taken away from you. So as I was saying, please just don't take this for granted. Take everything into consideration. Understand what it is that is going on around you. Pay attention to the things that people are saying that you don't hear out there in mainstream media. because honestly, that media is put out there to distract you from what is actually happening in the real world. So, pay attention to the voices that are beating the drum and saying, hey, this is what's going on out here in reality. Don't get distracted by, the very small bits of suppressed information that the very small bits of highlighted information that is being pushed out there in the mainstream. That is not, what is actually going on in society with the masses of people. People such as myself and others, we're bringing the real information. And we need you all to pay attention to what it is that we're saying, because like I said, you don't know how long we're going to be able to continue to push these messages out here. So please don't take this for granted, and please pay attention to the people that are, courageous enough to get up here and put the information out here that is basically being suppressed from the masses of people. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here. I want to thank everybody who, tuned into the stream tonight, and everybody who may be watching the playback later on. Let's just keep our eyes open, and let's pay attention to what is going on, and let's be prepared to have a backup plan, when and if the day comes that we're no longer able to use these social media outlets to get our messages out there. Now, you all can follow me on Facebook at Shelly Speaks. That's my Facebook page. I also have a Twitter account, which is Shelly Speaks 1 on Twitter. You can also email me if you have anything that you would like to discuss on my Gmail. That is shellyspeakstruth@gmail.com. Again, that's shellyspeakstruth@gmail.com. You can go ahead and email me anything that you may want to discuss, or if there's anything that you would just like to say to me, you can go ahead and email me. Again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to the stream. Please comment, please like, please share. Let's please keep these messages going for as long as we possibly can. Thank you again for watching, and everyone have a great night.